How the LGBTQ movement is helping the growth and evolution of the human species and our eternal souls. A Spiritual Perspective. Part 1. By Jennifer Crystal Johnson. InnerWorkCoaching.life. Some of you may not agree, but from my perspective, especially now that I've recognized some of the ways in which I have been conditioned and brainwashed throughout my own life, the LGBTQ movement, and anyone who has ever and will ever question their own sexuality, gender, orientation, etc., are here to teach us about the many different types of love that exist, which helps to develop more refined discernment and compassion, and about accepting those who happen to be born different than the majority of human beings. And we can all be born different in other ways too. It doesn't have to have anything to do with our sexuality. In order to cover this topic in the ways I feel compelled to, I first want to go into more detail about masculine and feminine energy, because each of our souls is made up of both, and energy itself has no gender. What is an eternal soul? Energy, love and light, not gender, or prejudice, bigotry, judgment, fear, or hatred of something we do not understand. I invite you to join me as we explore some of the ways in which this movement is actually helping our eternal souls evolve by opening up and expanding our consciousness surrounding the topic of love and what it quote-unquote should look like. Please click the link in the description for video number 1 to understand what I'm referencing. You've probably seen the above video making its rounds on social media at some point, and I don't know about you, but every time I see this I am moved to tears, especially having been witness to some of the cold and heartless ways some parents can treat their children for not following the status quo or for simply being different. Now, had you asked me about this topic a few years ago, before I started waking up and rediscovering my own definition of love, I would have just stayed silent or probably written off any gender or sexual confusion in someone as deep-seated emotional illness or quote-unquote damage based on my extremely religious upbringing and conclusions other people have drawn and dictated to me as my own. But since then, I have gained a much deeper understanding and a very different perspective, and the more open I am about the lifestyles of others, the more compassionate and understanding I can then choose to be toward everyone, no matter how or why they may be different, because on some level, we all are, 100% unique, but also 100% connected. This shift in my understanding and definition of love has taken all of the emotional upheaval and anger out of this topic and others, and brought with it a warm sense of acceptance and heart opening that I will attempt to put into words, although I'm not sure if I can do it justice. So, why is homosexuality such a huge issue in the first place? When we really get down to it, it's a difference of opinion, period. While the group outside of the movement claims to understand exactly what's happening, even though they have never experienced anything like it for themselves before in their lives, the group within itself has a whole different perspective on it, because they actually do understand what's happening on an internal, emotional, and therefore energetic level. If you don't have first-hand experience with something, you cannot possibly know what's happening within someone who is journeying through said experience. You can be open, listen, and do your best to understand without judging, but you cannot possibly tell another person, "I understand what you're going through," unless you've been through something similar yourself. It would be akin to someone who has never been emotionally abused, claiming to understand something as complex and insidious as covert narcissistic abuse. or someone who has never even set foot in a pair of military boots, claiming to understand what it's like to be on the front lines of war. This is part of the problem. People assume they know what something is like, feels like, consists of, and what experiences it might come with. But rather than actually trying to learn more and expand their conscious awareness about the topic, they assume that what they already know is all they need to know, and that makes them an authority. But none of us know what we don't know, so continuous learning is an absolute must for ongoing growth. Unfortunately, just having an opinion doesn't mean it's the right opinion, or that any opinion is right or wrong for that matter. You don't get to claim to be right just because you have an opinion and a mouth you can choose to run destructively. In order to gain a full understanding of any given topic, you must continue to educate yourself, and even then, a full understanding is impossible in our physical lifetime, because we don't get that until all perspectives come together as one, back with source energy. All of the information and experiences gathered within our souls from all lifetimes ever lived, physical and on earth, or otherwise. Also, it's important to distinguish between what is actual fact and evidence versus what has been accepted as fact by the mainstream without question just because it's been around for as long as we can remember. That doesn't make it fact, and it doesn't make it the best method. As long as there is a debate, there are not enough facts, nor is there enough evidence, and the best way to reach a solution that benefits everyone is by being open about the tough topics, especially when someone disagrees with you. Now, I'd like to cover not only the religious aspect of this topic, but also the sex-shaming aspect of this topic, because people, especially in the US, really need to stop trying to pretend to be all perfect and prissy and prude on the surface and do all this twisted, messed up stuff behind closed doors because of emotional suppression, and then project and blame like crazy when they are found out. The shame surrounding sex in this country is despicable and completely unhealthy, and I believe a huge part of the reason why we are spiritually and mentally ill as a collective, and why so many people are so uncomfortable with the LGBTQ movement even now. In order for healthy progress and growth to occur, no topic should be taboo. None. Not sex, not drugs, not religion or spirituality, not politics, not relationships, love, bodily functions, death, you name it. We literally have to rip our perceptions open to a point of not judging anything anymore, and then true progress can be made. There can't be resistance to the topic itself, and if there is, that resistance must be met with love and compassion to allow the energy to run its course and be released. If a particular topic still makes you feel angry, guilty, resentful, ashamed, or any other negative emotion, you can take that as a sign that you have some kind of conditioning or past trauma that needs to be recognized, brought into the light or out into the open with a safe person, and then healed and released. The topics themselves will vary for different people, but chances are that the topics you are absolutely the most passionate and emotionally involved about are those that hold a secret lesson or revelation for you. This is why you often see people labeled as homophobic, and later it comes out that they were secretly homosexual and projecting all of their shame about themselves onto the group as a whole. There are a lot of complexities involved, but you can probably imagine how emotionally harrowing a situation like this might be, especially if this is a person who has built an entire life and career on their own denial of self. I would imagine there would be a lot of shame, guilt for being different, fear and anxiety about whether people will still accept you if they know, and quite possibly envy of those who are already out and able to live their lives being 100% themselves and being accepted for it within their own tribe or community. I'm sure there are even more things going on behind the scenes than that, but these are the most obvious to me, especially having been raised in an environment where sex was completely taboo and you were going to hell for even thinking about it. On that note, let's go into some of the ways in which society has conditioned us to be ashamed of sex itself, which in my opinion stems from the dominance of Christian religions. What better way to control the masses than by making them think that something beautiful, loving, and sacred between two consenting human beings is somehow dirty, gross, evil, or something to be ashamed of? This not only serves as a method for control, but also as a distraction, because when we're constantly busy feeling bad about ourselves, we don't notice the corruption of those who encourage this type of self-deprecating attitude in another human being. This sex shaming could very well be a major contributor to the sheer number of priests who were found out to be sexually molesting children. Making sex an evil or horrible thing distorts its true purpose and benefits, as well as distorting the act itself. Rather than it being associated with love, bonding, and spiritual expansion, it has been perverted and associated with evil, worthlessness, shame, and degradation. This is conditioning at its best, and the damage it has caused over the course of thousands of years is just now coming to the surface and getting louder and louder in order to get our attention so that we may choose a different way from now on. Let's get something completely clear right now. Sex is a beautiful and amazing act that serves many different purposes for human beings, including but not limited to procreation, a deep and profound expression of love and passion, creative expression, emotional release, energetic healing, and stress management. Like food and water, sex is part of our biological makeup, and this part of our body system also needs to be maintained and healthy for us to be able to show up as our best selves each day. People often joke about how when someone is super cranky that they probably haven't gotten any in a while. Well, there's more truth to that than we may want to admit, and I am also inclined to wonder whether many people who are asexual have evolved or adapted to these times of sex shaming, although I'm not 100% certain that this protects them from being bullied or dealing with outside judgment, fear, and bias issues. Not that it's a conscious decision, more that our soul energy has begun evolving more and more rapidly as the shift into 5D happens globally. Of course, this is just my theory, but it makes sense to me from a spiritual and energetic perspective, especially having experienced some of the emotional damage that comes when those who claim to love you don't come through because you don't follow their designated path for you or do as they want you to. When it comes to how we each experience life from within our own being, nobody on the outside of you gets to tell you how you feel or what you believe in. Not your parents, not your partner, not your boss. Nobody. It is 100% up to you to co-create your life experiences, and I believe that there are no mistakes, which I will revisit when I talk about the spiritually abusive religious aspect of this topic. The most important thing to keep in mind here is that everything is divinely planned and timed. There is no error when it comes to the influence divinity has on our lives. Nothing is a mistake. It just isn't quite as simplistic as, if you're good, you'll go to heaven eventually, but if you're bad, a bearded guy in the sky will punish you. This just doesn't make any sense when you take all of the layers of reality, billions of different perceptions existing simultaneously, different dimensions, the soul, and the entire universe into account, which we always should when we talk about the soul anyway. Thank you so much for listening. This has been part 1 of a 6-part video series about the LGBTQ movement and how it relates to spirituality. Please stay tuned for video 2, The Eternal Soul's Masculine and Feminine Energies, coming up as soon as I finish editing and posting this one. Love and light to you, my friends, especially through these tough topics. Thank you so much for watching. No matter where you are on your journey, please take good care of yourself from within on all levels. If you'd like more guidance, please subscribe to my YouTube channel or visit www.innerworkcoaching.life for more content or to apply for one-on-one coaching. With unconditional love and light, I wish you an amazing week, and I hope to see you again for my next video. Namaste.